Good afternoon and welcome to St. Stephen's. We have a brand new organ and our fabulous organist, Mark Argo, is put together a wonderful patriotic concert. This is a continuation of concerts that have been in the past. So I do want to caution everybody, silence your phones. He will not need any help from your phone while he is playing. And thank you again and enjoy.
Good afternoon. Welcome to St. Stephen's. We do two things really well here. We do a lot of things really well, but we do two things really, really well. One of them is Christmas Eve, so come back. It's almost exactly half a year from now. Come back. And the other thing is the 4th of July. So it's 4th of July, you're at St. Stephen's. Relax and enjoy it. So what in the world is that nut doing playing Take Me Out to the Ball Game? There's actually a story behind that. So we lost one of our patriarchal church members last fall, Jan Hardy. She was very, very, very supportive of the music program, very, very supportive of me all the time. And I think I've done 9 of these. I have at least 8 programs at home. And I would usually start either with the national anthem like we just did, or I would do Big's variations on the Star Spangled Banner, which lasts forever. And every year, Jan would come up afterwards and say, "Oh, that was just wonderful, but you left one thing out. You should play Take Me Out to the Ball Game after the national anthem." So that is my tribute to Jan, and thanks for all the years that she was so supportive of the program here. So a little bit about the organ. The pipes are still here. The pipes are still functioning. They're fully integrated into an 87 rank equivalent digital Walker technical organ is what it's called. Totally top of the line. you will not be able to tell what is pipe and what is digital. It is totally impossible, because when it was voiced, he did a picture of the pipe sound, and then he put the digital sound over the pipe sound so that the digitalization is exactly the same thing. And the way the speakers, which you really can't even hardly see, are positioned, it sounds like all the sound is coming from the pipes anyway. So this is the top of the line. You can't get any better than this in this price range unless you want to spend $5-6 million. Then they've got something slightly better. None of us would be able to tell the difference, however. So we're very, very fortunate to have this. First official piece here is going to be the Battle Hymn of the Republic. And I'm going to run the trumpets out of the back. So you're going to have sound coming out of the back. The rest of it's going to come out of the front. And I'm also going to introduce for the first time our entire bank of strings, and we will come back to that later. This has more strings than any organ most of you have ever heard. Battle Hymn of the Republic. So if you're curious, how loud does it get? We've still got a ways to go, but you know if you come to a 4th of July concert, the dust is coming out of the pipes. The dust is coming out of the pipes. So 3 marches about George Washington. If you've studied this, there's like 42 trillion of these. I've selected 3 of them, and I have done the registration as you would expect from about a 1780s organ in the United States. These would have been very, very small. Of course, transportation over from Europe would have been a great problem, and nothing this size would have been there. And one of the things I want to do is demonstrate for you the breadth of sound that does come from these 87 ranks that we've gotten to go along with our 12 ranks of pipes. And this is going to be a little bit on the quieter side. The middle one is going to sound a little harsh. The pipes on these organs were very, very small, and the sound would have been fairly harsh for most of them. If you go to Williamsburg, be sure to visit the Wren Chapel in the College of William and Mary, and they have one of the original ones. I think it's from 1760. It was brought over from England, and the sound is very similar to what you're about to hear. 3 marches from George Washington. that is the greatest march you've never heard of. Nobody else I've run into has ever heard of it. Every time I play it, everybody goes, that's great. How come we've never heard from it before? I have no idea. The roaring you heard at the end is the 32-foot bombard. So if you're unfamiliar with how pipe organs work, the longest pipe on each rank gives the pitch of the pipe. 32 feet is about as far as it goes. It can also go 64. So your mathematicians in here, of which I'm one, you go from 32 feet to 16 feet, to 8 feet, to 4 feet, to 2 feet, to 1 foot, to half foot, quarter foot, and then on and on and on. If you're really on your game mathematically, those are called the Pythagorean ratios. Each one halves the others. That's why this all works. That's why you've got all these individual pipes, and yet somehow it all blends together. That's why the new technology in 2025 with all the digital imaging that it has works with the pipes. That's why the digital imaging can work together without canceling out the sound so that you can hear every individual sound. It's about as complicated as it gets. Even going back to the 1400s when the first pipe organs were made, pipe organs have always been just about the most complicated machine that exists on Earth in every single time period that there is. But that's how they work. We have 5 32-foot sounds on this organ. You heard another one with the strings. You just heard kind of a little roar underpinning it. It's kind of quiet. It's there so that your ears know that there is a tonic to the chord, a bottom note in every chord. And a lot of these things on a pipe organ or any other organ are there to fool you into singing louder. We'll get to that maybe in the next recital that we have coming up, hopefully in the fall. But that's just a short snapshot about what all's going on. And if you want to come up and look at the console later, if you haven't seen it, it's about like the cockpit of a 787 jet. There's a lot going on. And I mention that because the next piece is the tribute to Lafayette's visit. Came to Milledgeville. If you don't believe it, the marker's right over there. You can go look at it. 1825. So this is the 200th anniversary, so I thought it would be good to throw in a French piece. This is the finale from a larger work, and it's written for organ and symphony. So that brings about several problems for me in the next 5 minutes or so that you're listening to this. I will be playing a transcription of the symphony. So here's how that works. You know, symphony has a lot of different instruments, lots of different instruments. So the score is about that long with 30, 40 different staves of music. Somebody has to come in and take those 30, 40 staves and put them to 3. That doesn't necessarily mean it fits under your fingers or your feet very well. You can probably tell the organ part really quickly because it's actually very simple. You can almost snooze and play along with it. Symphony part's another matter, so you kind of have to play along with that. If this is your favorite symphony and you're used to hearing it up to full speed, I apologize to you in advance. There's no way these hands can do the full speed that those violins can go. So I'm kind of just taking it slowly and on the down low a little bit. And I would like for you just to get the gist of what's going on with it. If you really, really like the piece or you have liked it for years, there's a new recording out by Anna Lapwood, who is the up-and-coming star. She is the organist of the Royal Albert Hall in London, England. That's one of the largest organs in the world, and it will actually take people's hair off if they're sitting about where you are. It puts on a show, and she is so unassuming, very humble, and can play absolutely anything. And they have a new recording out. They did this on their patriotic day in Britain. I said, that's not the worst idea I've ever heard. So think of this as French patriotic music, and we'll get to the French part in just a minute with the next song also. Finale, Sensei Organ Symphony. nothing else on say knows how to have an ending. So the next piece I think many of you will find very, very interesting. This is by Tom Wiggins. You've probably never heard of Tom Wiggins, and he actually went by 3 other last names, and I forgot to write them all down. Tom was born in 1839 outside of Columbus, Georgia, on a plantation as an enslaved worker. He was born blind. The planter instructed them to just leave him out in the field and let him die, and they did not do that. Later, he and his family were sold to another plantation. The family had a piano, and Tom would be with his mother, who was a house servant at that plantation. And as Tom heard things playing on the piano, he didn't really know any better, being so young. He just walked up and played it himself. He could reproduce everything exactly as he heard it. It is now thought that he was probably an autistic savant, totally blind. Since he had this talent, the family kind of let him do concerts here and there in yon. And that was occurring pre-Civil War. And then during the Civil War, he wrote this piece. Notice it is the Battle of Manassas, unlike the other title used by one of the other sides for the same battle. So this was published in 1862. It kind of boggles my mind that they were even able to publish something, but an original copy is in the Smithsonian collection and probably also in the Duke Music collection. And if you Google it, you can find it. What I'm playing is a stylized modern version on real music staffs that is an exact copy of the 1862 publishing of the piece. If you've read through this, and I know some of you probably read the entire program as soon as you got it, you were wondering, what in the world is all this whacked out stuff they've got here, because this is not right. I assure you it is. This is Tom's version of what was told to him, so it would be a primary historical resource, just like a letter or other writing that has shown up and in his library somewhere. So the Southern Army comes into the tune, The Girl I Left Behind, and you can Google that if you want to. You'll find that was one of the most popular pieces that the Southern Army marched to. Northern Army leaves Washington to the tune of Dixie. If you've ever seen Gone with the Wind, Jezebel, or any of the other movies, just wipe that out of your head. That is a work of fiction. That is not a primary resource. You will find Dixie was the popular song of the Northern Army, along with the Battle Hymn of the Republic, which was then known as John Brown's Body, which was actually popular for both sides. And then you're thinking, well, how could both sides be playing it? Well, logic dictates they weren't two sides 5 years before, correct? So all the music was kind of a Venn diagram. They were all together, and then when it split apart, the music was in the middle with everything else. So if you think about it, this is perfectly logical. Now what's interesting is the Dixie is not exactly as you have been led to think it sounds. So listen for that. Then we have trumpets coming, so again, I'll display some things available on this organ. Part of the trumpets will come from the back. The quieter trumpets will come from the front. And then we get Yankee Doodle. Yankee Doodle was played by both sides because that went all the way back to the pre-revolution times, et cetera, et cetera. Then we have the Marseillaise. So we get back to the French tribute here. Marseille was pretty much at that time picked up by the South because it was considered to be a revolution, and the French Revolution was the closest historically to what was supposedly being tried to do. So Tom is telling us the story of the Battle of Manassas through the Marseillaise. So you will hear three distinct renditions of the Marseillaise, and all three are quite different depending on what was going on in the battle at that particular time. Then notice you get the Star-Spangled Banner. What does it not say? The national anthem, because that was about 3-4 generations later. At this time, it was the Star-Spangled Banner. And it is quite different from what you heard about 20 minutes ago. Quite different. So listen for that. Then we have battle raging, reinforcements. And then the retreat has this little bit flavor of Dixie, because who is retreating in the Battle of Manassas or the Battle of Bull Run, either one, whichever you want to say? Who's retreating? The Northern Army. And what piece is Tom telling us is connected to the Northern Army? Now, hopefully the piece will make sense to you. It's actually pretty short, but it has a lot of different special effects in it. A retreat is supposed to be disorganized, isn't it? Isn't that neat how he brought all that in there? And that's his version of what he heard, because he certainly couldn't read anything. I do know that Blind Tom did perform in Madison in 1874, because there is a playbill that still exists, and it was in Baldwin Hall. They think that is the upper story of where the men's story is right now. It had to be after 1873, because the fire of 1873 wiped out all of downtown Madison as they knew it. And I Googled it, and Google AI said that they could not find any playbill or anything that said that Blind Tom performed in Milledgeville, but that it was highly likely, given Milledgeville's position as the previous state capital, and even the state capital while he was still alive. So there's a good chance that he was there. So the Charles Wesley you see in your program is not the hymn writer. That's his son. His son was the organist of a church in London for years and years and years and years, and that's where this comes from. It's technically variations on God Save the Queen or King, whichever one it is. So this brings us to Nimrod. You see Edgar Elgar, and some of you immediately know who that is. Some others over you are saying, I think I've heard that before. If you've ever graduated from high school or college, you have definitely heard Edgar Elgar because he wrote Pomp and Circumstance. What most people don't know is there are many pomps and circumstances. Only one that anybody ever knows. So this piece is from something called the Enigma Variations, and this is one of the variations. And I put it here so that we could have a quieter moment. This will be totally done on the strings. I'm not going to do any volume control whatsoever. I'm going to let the notes themselves do the crescendos and the decrescendos rather than forcing the issue. So this could be a tribute to those that have given everything in defense of freedom anywhere, all over the world. And it also is patriotic music for the British Isles. Edgar Elgar, that's a mouthful every time anyway, isn't it? Elgar is probably one of the more patriotic English composers that there is. And this is what they would play on British days of patriotism, along with what we sang last Sunday, I Vow to Thee My Country, Gustav Holst from The Planets. So, listen for all the different kinds of strings that you hear. We have 6 sets of strings here. Most organs are lucky to have 1 set of strings. We have 6, and I've stacked them all together so that they all blend together. Nimrod. time is drawing to a close today. You know there can only be one closing song at a St. Stephen's 4th of July concert. And if you've been wondering how loud can it get, your curiosity is just about to be satisfied. Thank you so much for coming today. Gosh, it's so nice to just relax and sit down and play stuff, not worry about when's the communion finishing, why are they not singing the fourth verse, and is the choir ever going to stand up, and all of those other things that creep into your head on a regular Sunday morning. So thank you for coming. Appreciate your presence. Look in the fall. We're going to try to do another one with both classical music and show tunes to really show off the color of the organ. I've shown you the breadth of the organ today. I next need to do all of the different colors and kinds of sounds that are possible, and you will find that the real beauty of this organ is in the soft sounds, not all the bombs bursting in air that you've heard today. So thank you. Stars and Stripes Forever. Feel free to stand up, clap, yell, do whatever you want.